Hi there, I'm Anna Bisak, and I am here talking with Teresa Davis, who's going to tell us a bit more about her work. So, Teresa, I'll have you start off by telling us, what do you do for work?
Sure. So I am the founding director of Davis Studio, and Davis Studio offers art classes for really all ages, everywhere from really tiny preschoolers all the way up to senior citizens. But I think most of our students that are coming are usually elementary and middle school students. So we have a mission of enriching life by fostering the joy of creativity. So we're mostly about visual arts, but we do have some other areas as well. And I had the art studio for a very long time and now have added onto that in our center an arts-based preschool program and also a small elementary school that also has a strong art focus.
Mhm. That is great. Can you tell us a little bit about your educational and career background and kind of how you came into this sort of work?
Sure. So I always think when somebody asks me, what do I do, or kind of who am I and how I got here, I see myself right now as really three equal parts. I've always been an artist and somebody that's been really creative. Everything from theatrical plays from the time I was a little kid all the way, through, as I've grown older, I've enjoyed drama and theater, but most particularly visual arts. And so I think kind of equal parts an artist and also an educator. My love has always been in teaching, but then a huge part of my job is being a business owner and an entrepreneur. So I kind of divide myself into all three of those pieces, and at different times one piece has taken more of a forefront than the other, but all three of those are interesting and important to me, and I love my job because I'm able to use all of those. So my background is in elementary education. So that's where I got started. I do not have a business background, but I feel kind of like I've been on a self-taught business path for many years now. I've owned my studio for about 17 years. And prior to that, I owned a couple of other little small businesses that kind of got me introduced to being an entrepreneur and a business owner.
That's great. What are some of your favorite things about your work?
Yeah, I think first of all, I love being in a really creative environment and really flexible. I love the variety of it. No 2 days are ever the same. No 2 weeks are ever the same. And even, just I think all of the variety of dealing with people
Mhm.
in a really kind of upbeat, uplifting, positive environment is always really rewarding. And that's something I just really love about my job.
That's great. What are some of the biggest challenges of your work?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. So I think that I started my business almost I forget if I mentioned that almost 17 years ago. So I've been in business a long time with Davis Studio, and I think not a week has gone by when somebody doesn't say to me, "Oh, you just have the best job," or "I would love to have your job." People really have a vision of what my job is. Is basically I just show up and then we paint and then things are really happy and then people go home happy. And I think that the challenging part of it is that people are only seeing the very front facing part of the job when there's so much behind being able to deliver that kind of really uplifting magical experience.
Mhm.
You have to deal with the facilities, and you'll come in and the air conditioning will be broken, or a sink isn't working, or any number of challenges with just the physical running of the space. And that shockingly takes up a lot of time and also cost. So that's also a challenge. And then I think just the amount of work that it takes to put a class on the website for somebody to sign up for would be mind blowing to people. It's working out all of the verbiage and the images and making sure the teacher schedule clears, and then making sure that it gets put in about 20 places in our system, on our calendar, in our registration system, on the website with the right wording and the right image, and hooked with the links to all of the right places. So I think that there are so many points along that way that are incredibly detail oriented, and we have to have systems in place that hold all of that. And that's the part that people have no idea how much preparation and work, along with supply ordering and marketing and all of the things that lead to what they see as, oh, this happy person shows up and does a really fun art class. So
Mhm.
I think while I don't mind doing all of that, and there are parts of that I really enjoy, I think that people misperceive what my
Mhm.
job entails
Mhm.
because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so that kind of leads into the next question. You sort of spoke about this already, but what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah. The joy for me is that there is no such thing as a typical day. There's a little bit of a flow to the week. I do still teach just a tiny bit, a couple of classes, but in the last year or two, I've been transitioning out of doing a lot of teaching myself, and I view my role a lot more as supporting the teachers who deliver what we do, because somebody needs to fill that role. So I think typically I do have one-on-one meetings with staff. I do have staff small group meetings for the different programs that we have. I may be involved when there's a financial decision. So I get up every day with a gigantic to-do list. It's different every day. Sometimes you think you know what you're going to do, and then some new thing comes in that's more of a priority. And so I do a lot of problem solving and attempting to streamline things and attempting to remove sort of barriers so that my team can really do the great work they do, and barriers of entry for students who want to come take classes. So I think I'm always trying to make us a user-friendly place and an easier place to come to, because frankly, I think that a lot of people, especially adults, are very nervous about being creative. They may not have taken an art class. They may be in their 50s and not really done anything since junior high. And so for them to get the courage up to come into an art class, they're already that can, for some people, be very nerve-wracking. And I'm trying to make sure that our space is really inviting and that we're making it as easy as possible for them to take a creative risk and come in and enjoy art with us.
That's great. What do you think would make someone a good fit for your kind of work?
Yeah, I think one thing probably, and again, it's a little bit different at the different phases, because early on my business was much, much smaller, and it was legitimately just me for the first couple of years before I hired other people on my team. And now I have almost 20 some teachers that teach for me. So whether you're looking at it as I would like to be a solopreneur and run an art studio and I'm the only teacher, those are different skills than the skills that I need now. So I think people that would be a good fit on the earlier part of my career would be people who love working with people who enjoy being creative, people who like to teach, people who are organized enough to be able to plan ahead and offer classes to people. I'm planning almost always 6 months ahead of what's happening. And even when it was just me, I was always at least 3 months out. And so it's a good communicator and an organized person who loves people and loves art. Now, if I look at 17 years later, I think you need a lot more management skills and maybe more tech. And whether you personally have the tech, you at least need to have an understanding of it so that you can utilize it properly and have your staff making sure that all your systems are in place. So I think at the stage my business is at now, it would be a good fit for somebody who enjoys a lot of responsibility, who really appreciates complexity, who is not afraid to problem solve. And especially, we've just come out of, and not that we're out of it, but we're in the midst of having to adjust during COVID. And I felt like I had to do so much holistic thinking about my business and problem solving in the moment. And I literally changed my business model to be able to keep my business in. And so there's a lot of hard decisions that you have to make. So I think it really depends. I think there are very many successful people who have something a little bit more smaller and manageable, and they're a good fit for that. For me, I'm glad I didn't just jump from one to the other. It has been a gradual growth process, and I've really enjoyed that. But I do believe there's two little bit different skill sets depending on really the size and the scale of what you've chosen to do.
That's great. If a student is interested, in doing something similar to what you do, is there anything that you would recommend that they do right now to continue to explore it, like classes or projects or volunteer things or part-time jobs?
Yeah. Yes. I think, well, first of all, I think I would like to back up just a little bit and say that I think there are a lot of creative careers that people eliminate. I think people think, oh, if I spend my time in art class, then, my parents or whoever's always telling me you can't get a real job as an artist. And I think
Mhm.
that's such a myth. I think there are many, many ways to use creativity directly in careers. So if you think of all of the careers that involve design, like architecture or industrial design, which is in designing products, or graphic design or fashion, or, I could name endless amounts, like landscape design, even. There are a ton of things where I think if you have an education, have been sort of developed your aesthetic sense and your sense of what is a good composition, and some basic tools and skills, that these kind of things really do pay off, and it can pay off directly into a career. Or I've had a number of, I've been around long enough now that I've had students who came for years to us and who now are graduated college and in the career field, and I've had a couple of them that are in medical fields who tell me all the time how much they learn from art, from just the problem solving and the
Mhm.
thinking outside of the box. And so I think, for one, just develop an art practice or a creativity practice, even if it's not in the visual arts. And I think that that will open a lot of doors for you, no matter what career path you're going
Mhm.
into, because it helps you just be an out of the box thinker, which I think is valued by every employer, and is certainly valuable if you decide to be an entrepreneur and become your own employer.
Mhm.
So I think that's one. I would just really encourage people to have a creative practice of some sort that they're really growing in. And then I know that when I was considering being a teacher, I did as many things as I could close to that. So I initially was a elementary school teacher, and I tutored and I volunteered, and I just was in that environment enough to know that I thrived in that environment and I really liked it a
Mhm.
lot. And I think so often we have this image of what a career is, and like we see it on TV, or we know a person who has this, and you go through all the schooling and then you actually get to it and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I like this.
Mhm.
So I think the other recommendation I would have is to just put yourself in that position, or something as close to it as you can. So we have a lot of students who come as students and then they volunteer for art programs, classes, or camps in the
Mhm.
summer. At a certain stage, I offer a handful of people paid positions. So they've had an
Mhm.
opportunity to teach and assist and really kind of see if this environment is right for them. I think if it's the entrepreneurial side that people are more interested in, I think you would be surprised how many transferable skills there are.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in owning even a creative business, I would still really recommend getting to know someone who owns any business, and
Mhm.
just kind of understanding, what does that mean? What is a profit and loss statement? And what kind of taxes are there? And how does payroll work? And, little things like that, that I think will be an education, so that you can see, oh, this is actually fascinating to me, or I like how this works, or I actually want nothing to do with that. I'd like to be
Mhm.
in the classroom, but I don't want to have to deal with all the finances. And I think having a little bit better understanding of that will be clarifying. And there are lots of opportunities for young people to volunteer or get entry level jobs in these types of things. But I also think so many entrepreneurs in particular love talking about their jobs. And
Mhm.
if you would just say, can you just, I find your business interesting, and can you just meet with me for an hour and tell me about what you do and what you like and don't like? I think that alone is a
Mhm.
very smart thing to actually do, just to decide if you want to pursue schooling in a certain direction or not.
Mhm. That's great. Thanks. And I think you've spoken a little bit about this too, but what kind of education or training do you think that a student might be thinking about down the line, to
Right.
either do something very similar to what you do, or, going in one of those three directions?
Sure, sure. I think for the arts, again, I think
Mhm.
that really pursuing your craft is very, very important. And if you want to teach, I think finding opportunities to teach and work with students of all ages is
Mhm.
really important. Again, I think from a coursework perspective, you can go on the teaching track. You
Mhm.
could definitely go the fine art track, or you could go the business track.
Mhm.
And I find successful people often are unable to formally go down all three tracks. So
Mhm.
you want to choose which one to go down formally and which other ones to learn about informally.
Mhm.
So especially you're like, what am I getting a degree in? Nobody gets a degree in arts entrepreneurialism with
Mhm.
MBA. You know, I mean, maybe there
Mhm.
is such a thing, but I didn't come across something like that.
Mhm.
So often you're piecing those parts together to get the skills that you really need. But I do think that on doing some business courses, and like I said, I ended up having a teaching degree. So that's the route that I went down professionally initially. And it was not art teaching, it was elementary classroom teaching.
Mhm.
But I've always had an arts emphasis. And so that I've been able to self teach by taking little mini courses here and there, reading tons and tons of books about business. And then I also have just developed my own art practice. So you kind of um, can make a choice to go down
Mhm.
any of those paths, or I think you can find creative ways to mix them. And there's a number of options for career paths, but it's not as simple as this is the degree and these are these steps and this is the track. It's a little bit of you customizing
Mhm.
your own your own experience and your own education.
Mhm. That's great. Is there anything else that you would want to add or share with students?
Hmm. Just I
Mhm.
I think that at the age and stage when you're making career decisions, a lot of other people have opinions. And
Mhm.
I think that is one of the hardest things is you're trying to figure out who you are and you're trying to sort of do what people who are older than you have said recommended.
Mhm.
And I have come across so many adults, especially because I do something creative, who felt they really should have gone into a creative career. They knew it in their heart, but somebody talked them into something a little bit more sensible, and they've ended up just not feeling like it's the perfect fit for them. And
Mhm.
I think that's the piece is just really kind of be true to your interests and what you think is something that could be infinitely exciting or that you have some growth in. And if you are focused on that, I do think there are opportunities. You may not know about those opportunities, but there are
Mhm.
many opportunities out there. And I just think it's tricky because college is very expensive right now. And I think so many people feel like, I thought this is what I wanted to do. I've done 4 years of school. Now I have student debt. I have no choice.
Mhm.
And I think just know that there are choices and
Mhm.
options. And the closer you can find a career path that kind of resonates with your authentic self and what brings you a lot of joy and what where you feel like you can contribute to the world in a meaningful way, that's the path you should take, even if six of your uncles are in the medical field and they're really thinking you should go into medicine. So,
Mhm.
I guess that's my only little piece of piece of advice. It's an exciting time. There are so many career options. I joke or I laugh when I think about it. When my mom was in her 20s, there were legitimately three career paths for women. There was
Mhm.
almost nobody who wasn't a teacher or a nurse,
Mhm.
or administrative, like a secretary or what they call
Mhm.
secretary then. And the options that students have now, even beyond the options that I have now,
Mhm.
are just so numerous. But I also think there the center that I've created doesn't really exist anywhere else. So
Mhm.
I think there's something also really exciting and a little bit magical about just creating your own path. And
Mhm.
that's a lot what I have done. And I find my work just very exhilarating.
Mhm. That is so great. Thank you so much.
Sure. It was wonderful to talk with you.
Mhm.